So, y'all know Donald Trump didn't acknowledge Black History Month at all. No references on Truth Social, no customary announcements via the White House. He just simply ignored it. Sorta. But you know what? I don't give a damn that he didn't acknowledge Black History Month, actually. At all. At all. I'm not offended. I'm not surprised. I'm not even looking for Donald Trump's validation. But I am paying attention, and we all should be paying attention. Not during a random year, not during a forgettable year, but this year marks the 100th anniversary celebration of Black History Month. Yeah. And Donald Trump marks the first president to not acknowledge it since 1976, which was the 200th year, 2-century marker of the United States. He is the first one since 1976 to refuse to acknowledge Black History Month. But it is also, Black History Month was first established in 1926. And it is also the year, this year, in which the country is preparing to celebrate our 250th birthday on July 4th. So that timing of him ignoring it, acting as though it doesn't exist, is actually what matters and very telling. Because anniversaries are about storytelling. They're about who gets centered in the moment. Like birthdays, when somebody's birthday comes along, that's their special day. And so anniversaries are kind of like that as well. They are about whose sacrifices are honored and whose are just simply erased. Black History Month only exists because Black history in this country was actually deliberately excluded from American history and the American story. In classrooms across the country, students were not learning the completeness of American history by excluding Black history. In fact, I am of the belief that in order to know the true American history, apart from the myth and the erasure and all the other stuff that happens, if you learn Black history, you learn it all, complete. The good, the bad, all, and the ugly. So when a president refuses to acknowledge it in its centennial year, he isn't being careless. He's being quite clear, saying exactly what he stands for. What he is saying is, as America prepares to celebrate itself, Black people are not meant to be part of the narrative. And that tells me everything I need to know, y'all. So this isn't about respect. It's about permission. Whose story gets told? Silence from the presidency gives permission for erasure, for distortion, and for open hostility. And if you guys can recall, this is also the same president, because we've covered the story here on Black Truth Daily, that has been removing histories about slavery, histories about Black participation in the several wars. Black people have participated in every single war since its inception, and even the American Revolution. But this president has been removing those historical markers and that information. So we sense as a collective, and anybody with common sense can sense exactly what is occurring here. And that silence is completely consistent with who Donald Trump has always been. Not who he became, not who he's pretending to be in the moment, Because there's a lot of us black people who will show him with pictures of Jesse Jackson and with this black person and with Diddy and these people, and will say he can't possibly be racist, even though a photo op doesn't mean you're hanging out in real life with people. Common sense would say anybody can take a picture with anybody. But if you look at Donald Trump's consistent actions, you can see this is who he is. Not who he turned into. Who he has always been. This is the same man who took out a full-page ad as a hit list calling for the execution of the Central Park Five, who were all exonerated of the crime that they had been accused of, and that some of them had been forced to admit to. And he never apologized for it when asked. This is the same man whose company was sued by the federal government in the 1970s for denying housing to black renters. This is the same man who built his political relevance and his whole first campaign running for office, questioning the legitimacy, the citizenship of our first and only black president. This is the same man who defended white supremacists marching the streets as fine people. Very fine people. This is the same man who referred to African and Caribbean countries as shithole countries. This is the same man who uses law and order as a euphemism for black containment. We've seen all of this. This has been who he's been consistently. So no, I don't need a proclamation from a racist. I don't need a proclamation from a white supremacist. I don't need a proclamation from that. What I care about, actually, is the signal. Black History Month at 100 years is not ceremonial. It's a receipt. And that receipt marks several things. That receipt marks over 400 years of survival in this shit. That receipt marks 250 years of unpaid labor before America even ever claimed its independence. And the 100 years, a century of black people, it marks a century of black people demanding just to be acknowledged in a country that we built. Shabuzi, that we built, that everybody else came and contributed to and added to, but the foundation, the frame, and the house, literally the White House, had already been built. The infrastructure had already been built. The economic basis of what this powerhouse of a country has been had already been built off the backs and through the hands and the blood and the pains of black people. Trump chose this year to break a 50-year precedent at an important time, at a pivotal moment. That is directly, well, that's not disrespect. That's hostility. That's all out hostility. And as America gears up to celebrate her 250th birthday, that silence says plainly, this celebration is not for you, black people. And you know what? That's fine. I'm okay with that. Because we don't need permission to remember ourselves. We don't need permission to recognize what our ancestors meant and have done. And in this moment, there is I would tell you, this Black History Month has been an eye-opener. Because everybody wants to come for, to diminish, to degrade and to devalue Black Americans during Black History Month. The nerve. But anyone who thinks that this silence is symbolic only, let's talk about what this silence follows. But I would say, without a doubt, without mincing my words, without stumbling on my words, fuck Donald Trump. Fuck Donald Trump. Fuck Donald Trump. And it's gonna forever be that. So let's shift a little bit, because I think it's important to kind of, we're gonna follow the same conversation and trend of where we're going, but it's important that we talk about this. In recent days, it's Black Truth Now, by the way. In recent days, content circulated on Truth Social, which is Donald Trump's social media platform that he launched because he felt like Twitter and some of them other ones were too biased for him or too restrictive for him. There's things circulating out there that depict Barack Obama and Michelle Obama, our first Black and only Black first couple, in racially dehumanizing imagery. Yeah. Specifically invoking the ape trope. You see it. Putting the faces of our only Black president and his wife on the faces of apes. One of the oldest, most racist stereotypes in American history. And the interesting thing about this is Donald Trump shared it. And Donald Trump refuses to apologize for sharing it. Even though he now knows the history, and he's always known the history, so it makes this seem that you degrade the Black first couple during Black History Month in such a massive way. Super disrespectful. And it's one of those things that is just super disrespectful. But let's be precise. This was not an obscure meme floating anonymously on the internet, right? This imagery circulated in a political ecosystem that Trump created. Trump sent it. This is a political ecosystem where Trump sets the tone. Trump signals approval through repost and amplification, as he did with this one, and whose users, the user base, closely mirrors Trump's political base, aka MAGA. And the reason why this is so important to me to even talk about is because I have witnessed consistent throughout social media some of the most degrading shit about Michelle Obama from these people. Things I've never seen for any other first lady in history. Not even Hillary Clinton, who they tend to emasculate or at least say she's cold of a woman. She even keeps her femininity, and Michelle Obama is always challenged. When racist imagery appears in spaces like that, like Truth Social, it does not exist in a vacuum. It functions as permission. When the President of the United States shares it, people see it on a global scale, and it gives them permission. But why does this ape imagery, why does this matter? Well, comparing Black people to apes is not just simply dark humor, a joke, something that is funny. It is not being edgy and saying, having a little bit of off-color humor. It is not simply satire. It is a historical weapon used against Black people. This trope, this ape trope, has been used to strip Black people of our humanity, given justification for slavery and mistreatment. This trope has been used to argue that Black people, we are less evolved, and like I said, to justify slavery, to rationalize segregation, to excuse lynchings that were happening, wasn't killing human life. Human life wasn't in jeopardy, according to this trope. And it has also been used to deny civil and basic human rights to black people. Not just here, but all over the world. So when imagery like this resurface, especially targeting the first black family, it's not by accident, y'all. This was not sent out by accident. And I don't believe the excuse that Trump used when he said a staffer did it. I believe he saw it, he found it funny, and he wanted to be disrespectful. But he's not wanting to apologize to Barack Obama, who clearly lives rent-free in his mind all the fucking time. He's nowhere near half the man Obama is, as far as education, as far as looks, as far as personality, as far as presidency, as far as poise, as far as class. But he wishes he was, and it irks him that he's not. But this is historical language being reactivated in a modern time. Racism. This is about pattern, not just one post. This is not about the use of an image, one specific image. It's about a pattern. This is a pattern with Trump and with white America. Trump's political career has consistently relied on racist antagonisms, has consistently relied on dehumanization of others, black and brown people. And it has consistently signaled a lot of shit without plausible deniability. From birtherism to very fine people, from shithole countries to law and order, the strategy is the same, y'all. Say just enough, share just enough, let the base do the rest. They'll take it and run with it. They're already starting to call us the N-word out in the streets. It's a thing. This is how modern racism operates. And of course, we have to question, why are the Obamas the target? Well, Barack and Michelle Obama represent something deeply destabilizing to the racial hierarchy of America. They're what we're not supposed to be as black people. Black excellence without apology. Black intelligence without subservience. Black dignity on the world stage. Many people all over the world respect the Obamas. Historically, when black people break symbolic barriers, the backlash does not start with the policies, the intentional attempt to try to discriminate. It starts with dehumanization. So there's a justification to discriminate. And then that brings us directly into the discrimination. And that's where we are. So let's talk about these tropes. Last time I said I was going to use this month to talk about history, and this story presents a very profound history lesson. There are several tropes that are out there about black people. And they come in many forms and they mean different things, but there are tons of them, and they've been around for years. The first one is the ape trope. This, as we see with the imagery posted about the Obamas. This trope was used to deny black humanity, to promote so-called scientific racism, that we had smaller brains, we were a different species at one point, who was fit to be enslaved and mistreated. They also used this ape trope to argue that slavery was natural. It's okay to enslave lesser humans. And then, of course, they used the same ape trope to enact violence, extreme violence, actually, to justify it. This ape trope appears in the slave era pamphlets. It appeared in minstrel imagery. It appeared in newspapers, early anthropological studies, and even Nazi racial theory about black people. These tropes were present in all of these things. And it created a very hostile situation for black men, in particularly, but all black people. It is kind of similar to the black brute trope, and as I'm speaking, you will be seeing some of these imageries from different sources. So just let you know. There's the black brute trope that the ape trope is kind of similar to in many ways. This trope had been used to frame black men as an inherent threat. Kind of the same way the gangster image is used today. That black men are inherently violent and you have to be wary of them. The purpose of this trope was simple: to justify killing black men. You would have newspapers like in 1906 that led to the 1906 Atlanta riot that would publish black men were sexually and physically harming women and children. This is the brute trope. To justify lynching, but it was also to protect white violence and to criminalize black existence. Thousands were murdered. Thousands were murdered because of this lie, this trope. Then there's the Sambo trope, or the buffoon black trope, right? This was a widely used one too. This particular image was supposed to portray black people as childish and lazy and unintelligent, ignorant, infantile, dumb. It was used to argue that we were happy being slaves, the Sambo trope. It was also used to deny our political rights in this country because we were seen as unintelligent or too infantile to vote. To mock black intelligence, obviously, and so forth. A trope that impacted black women was the Jezebel, hypersexuality trope of black women. This trope literally hypersexualized black women, and we still see this trope, unfortunately, in some various forms today. But it was used to excuse sexual violence against black women. They were seen as wanting to be sexually assaulted. It was used to erase black women's rights to consent. And it was also used to blame the victim of whatever sexual assault that was happening, and allow black women to be treated like garbage, like sexual objects. And like I said, it's still present to this day. In connection with that, you have the welfare queen trope, famously used by Ronald Reagan in the 1980s against the black women. It's a very modern, this is one of the more modern ones to come out of the late 20th century. But it was intended to attack social programs that were used to help black people who needed them, even though the numbers were showing that black women weren't the ones majority using these programs. It was also used to criminalize black poverty. One of the conversations that that's typically had is that if you just tie yourself by the bootstraps and get to work, you can have the American dream, and that's just not factually or historically accurate. And of course, lastly, it's used to distract from corporate theft of black people. So these are just, I didn't want to, there's many, many more. These were part of minstrelsy, where they were, for over 100 years, white people were playing black people, imitating these tropes, and then at some point, it got to where black people wore blackface to play these tropes for many, many reasons. But it grew into a culture. And so there are very few non-black people who don't believe at least one of these tropes about black people. And there are even black people who have bought into these stereotypical tropes. So, like I said at the onset, I don't give a damn about Donald Trump's non-acknowledgement or acknowledgement of Black History Month. I care about the clarity behind it. Trump's silence during the 100th year of Black History Month, paired with the resurgence of racial imagery tied to his political ecosystem, partnered with the use of the N-word being in style again for them, partnered with how the policies like his big beautiful bill works against black families. This tells us exactly where we are in this moment in 2026. This is not regression. This is actually revelation. Black History Month exists because forgetting was always their goal. And when they stop pretending otherwise, the responsibility shifts to us as black people. And it is our job to remember, to document, to teach, and to tell the truth without apology about black history. It is also our job not to always live up to the stereotypes, and for those who do live up to the stereotypes, for us not to damn them, because we don't know their life circumstances. But if you can do better, do better. If you know better, show better. But this is where we are. This far into the 21st century, this is where we are. And it ain't a repetition. This is neo stuff. This is new. How it's being presented and how it's justified here. But it is what it is. And this has been my Black Truth. If you made it this far, thank you for watching the entire video. I really take time on a daily basis to put these together, to give you the best content, to give you the best news stories, to keep you abreast of what's happening in the black world, the black community here, and in our typical segments, what's happening around the black world. I can't do this without you, So I would love if you liked, you leave comments, you subscribe if you're not a subscriber. If you're watching it, you might as well subscribe. You leave comments, you share the videos, tell your friends about it, anticipate it, because I do this for my people. I do this for us, and to keep us abreast on what we need to know, and to just to encourage us to keep going. You are beautiful. You are the most powerful people on the planet. You represent a people who couldn't stand for themselves, and now you stand on their shoulders. Amen to that. So support the channel. Like I said, like, comment, share, subscribe, and I will see you in the next Black Truth Daily.